What happens when faith meets heartbreak? What happens when the thing you want most in life feels out of reach? The story of Hannah shows us. It is a story about a woman who longed for a child but faced years of pain. It is also about God's power to turn the empty places in our lives into something beautiful. Hannah's story is found at the very beginning of the book of 1 Samuel. It takes place in a difficult time for the nation of Israel. People were living under the rule of judges, and there was no king yet. Life was unstable. Many had drifted away from God. Yet, in the middle of that, the Bible introduces us to a simple family whose private struggles would shape the history of an entire nation. Hannah was married to Elkanah. Elkanah was a devout man who cared deeply for his family. But his household was not simple. He had 2 wives. One was Peninnah, who had children. The other was Hannah, who did not. This was a common practice at the time, though it always caused tension and pain. For Hannah, not having children was not only a personal sorrow but also a public shame. In that culture, a woman's worth was tied to her ability to bear children, especially sons. People would often see childlessness as a curse or a sign that God was displeased. This heavy burden sat on Hannah's heart day after day. Elkanah loved Hannah. He tried to comfort her. When the family went up to worship at the tabernacle in Shiloh, he would give her a double portion of the sacrificial meat to show his affection. He wanted her to feel honored and valued. But no gift could fill the emptiness inside her. The ache for a child remained. Peninnah, on the other hand, used her position to mock Hannah. She flaunted her children. She teased and provoked her rival, reminding her of what she lacked. Year after year, especially at the times of worship, Peninnah's words cut deep. The very journeys that should have been joyful became painful. Hannah's grief grew heavier. Yet, she did not only suffer in silence. Her sorrow drove her to seek God. At that time, many women might have endured quietly. But Hannah took her heartbreak straight to the Lord. She decided to pray with a depth and honesty that few had seen. During one of the family's visits to Shiloh, Hannah slipped away to pray. She went into the tabernacle and poured out her soul before God. Her prayer was not neat or rehearsed. It was raw and full of tears. She wept and prayed silently, her lips moving but no sound coming out. In her prayer she made a vow. She promised God that if he gave her a son, she would give that child back to him for all the days of his life. This was not a small promise. She was offering to dedicate her long-awaited son to lifelong service in God's house, living as one set apart for him. The scene was so intense that Eli the priest thought she was drunk. He saw her lips moving and her tears flowing but heard no voice. This showed the spiritual condition of the time. Even the priest did not recognize true heartfelt prayer. But when Hannah explained her distress, Eli's attitude changed. He spoke a blessing over her, saying, "Go in peace. May the God of Israel grant you what you have asked of him." Something happened inside Hannah at that moment. She got up from her prayer different from how she had gone in. The Bible says her face was no longer sad. She had no proof yet that she was pregnant. Nothing in her circumstances had changed. But she believed God had heard her. That shift in her heart shows the power of faith. Soon after, God answered. In time, Hannah conceived and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, which means, heard by God. His name was a constant reminder that God listens to prayer. For Hannah, Samuel's birth was not only the fulfillment of her longing but also a sign of God's goodness. Yet she did not forget her vow. When the child was weaned, likely around 3 years old, she brought him back to the tabernacle. With tender hands and a faithful heart, she presented him to Eli the priest. Imagine how hard that moment must have been. For years she had dreamed of holding her own child. Now she was surrendering him to live away from her, serving God day and night. Many mothers would have struggled to let go. But Hannah trusted God completely with Samuel's future. She honored her promise even when it cost her deeply. Samuel stayed at Shiloh, living in God's presence and learning under Eli. Hannah visited him each year, bringing him a little robe she had made. God, seeing Hannah's faithfulness, blessed her with more children, 3 more sons and 2 daughters. Her sacrifice was rewarded beyond what she could have imagined. Samuel grew to be one of Israel's greatest prophets. He guided the nation from the time of the judges into the era of kings. He anointed Saul as Israel's first king and later anointed David, the man after God's own heart. In many ways Samuel's life and ministry were the direct result of Hannah's faith and surrender. Hannah's story does not end with her sacrifice. After dedicating Samuel, she lifted her voice in a song of praise. This song is recorded in the Bible. It celebrates God's power to reverse human situations, to lift the humble and bring down the proud. Hannah's words reach beyond her personal experience. They speak of God's justice, His sovereignty, and even point forward to the coming of the true Anointed One, Jesus Christ. Both Hannah and Mary, the mother of Jesus, sang similar songs of praise. Both women experienced miraculous births and recognized that their personal stories were part of God's larger plan. Hannah's life teaches us many lessons. She shows us how to handle pain, not with bitterness, but with prayer. She shows us how to trust God with our deepest desires. She shows us that keeping our promises to God, even when it hurts, leads to blessings we cannot foresee. Many people today can relate to Hannah's struggles, the pain of infertility, the heartache of unfulfilled dreams, or the sorrow of unanswered prayers. Her story offers hope. It reminds us that God hears. He may not answer in our timing or in the way we expect, but His answers are always perfect and part of a bigger plan. God is still in the business of turning barrenness into blessing. Whether the barren place is literal or symbolic, He can bring life where there is none. Hannah's legacy is not only in the children she bore but in the faith she lived. As we reflect on her story, let us remember that God listens to our prayers today. Just as He did for Hannah, He can turn our sorrow into joy, our despair into hope. He can use our lives, even our pain, to accomplish His purposes. If this story has touched you or reminded you of God's power to change impossible situations, take a moment to share it with someone who needs encouragement. And if you love hearing powerful Bible stories like this one, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next incredible story.